percentage that you think gets this deal done?
Oh, I don't think Adam Silver has any interest in pegging it to a percentage at all. And Adam Silver addressed the media during the League Cup final in Vegas and said that he'll get involved if they want him to. But here's the surprise. He's been involved from the beginning. What he was saying is, will I go to the actual table? You don't need the commissioner of the NBA to be at this table at any time. But what they've done is they've extended the deadline first by 30 days, 40 days. So it's been a total of 70 days, which all you're doing is delaying a work stoppage. You want to get to that work stoppage because that's a legal term of art. You want to get to some sort of lockout or strike so then it can go to the next stage of these negotiations.
WNBA ownership is apparently so done with this whole mess that they might actually let Adam Silver just shut the whole thing down. We're not talking about restructuring or pausing operations. We're talking about completely ending the league. And yeah, that sounds extreme, but stay with me, because this situation is way more serious than most people realize.
Here is that the players in the WNBA want to have a pegged revenue number the way they have it in the NBA. And Adam Silver is saying no, because the NBA owners are saying no, because that's not taking into account all of the money that the WNBA owners need to profit and take off the table to pay down debt that has been accruing over the decades of losses. So that is why they're not having a meeting of the minds on any percentage, which is why the NBA is offering minimum salaries increasing like up to $1 million, because then you can absolutely chart and express what you're expecting.
These CBA talks have turned into an absolute train wreck. Players are ready to walk out. Owners keep saying they've put up everything the numbers will allow, and Adam Silver's trapped between two groups who can't even agree on basic financial reality. There's even buzz that Kathy Angelbert might be part of what gets negotiated away here. Apparently, players want her out, and some ownership groups wouldn't exactly cry about starting fresh. Nobody knows if that's really jamming up the whole deal, but when literally everyone wants your commissioner gone, that tells you something about how things are going.
The players are not going to move on a revenue split versus derived revenue share off of a fixed number. What is your opinion on what happens?
Maybe the end of the WNBA.
Let's break down what ownership actually put forward. Considering where the league stands financially, it's actually pretty solid. They're talking about $1 million maximum salary. Average compensation would land around $417,000. Throw in about $200,000 in performance bonuses, and you're looking at a real maximum closer to $1.2 million when everything shakes out. They're also putting some form of revenue sharing on the table. Compare that to right now, where the max is barely over $200,000, and you're looking at massive jumps across the board.
Popular to who? To the large majority of the... I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. If what you're saying that there have been expansion fees paid and they're trying to expand and they've got broadcast deals that were totally pinned to the NBA deals, is that what you mean by unpopular? What I'm telling you is that if the players get too greedy, it will...
But here's what happened next. Players looked at all that and said, absolutely not. They didn't just decline either. They voted to authorize a full strike. And get this, 98% voted yes. Only 3% held back. Now everyone's playing the guessing game about who those few are, and Caitlin Clark's name keeps floating around. Nobody's confirmed anything, but people are reading tea leaves because she might be the only one who gets that you can't demand money from a business that's already bleeding cash. Let's get uncomfortable for a second. The deal on the table represents a huge upgrade from current reality. We're talking about salaries doubling or tripling in some cases. Going from $200,000 to $1 million at the top isn't some insulting lowball offer. That's life-changing compensation for almost anyone. But apparently, the thinking is that even more is deserved. And here's where I'm going to say something unpopular. It's not. Not when the fundamentals don't support it. These ownership groups are bending themselves into pretzels trying to make this sustainable. They're absorbing losses year after year, and they're still proposing dramatic compensation increases. Meanwhile, there's this narrative being pushed that players are somehow getting disrespected, when the actual situation is they're being offered more than the revenue the league brings in. That's not a functioning business model. That's not how any of this works. That's economic fantasy. Someone who specializes in NBA labor issues went on a podcast and laid out exactly what's happening behind closed doors. It's actually worse than the public narrative suggests. Adam Silver has been in these negotiations from day one. Even though he said publicly he'll intervene if necessary, he's already there. The problem is no amount of negotiating skill can overcome the math problem. Players want their compensation tied to a revenue percentage, just like NBA players have. Owners are saying absolutely not. And the reasoning is pretty clear. This league has been piling up debt for decades. That's the part nobody wants to acknowledge directly. The WNBA isn't just unprofitable right now, it's been losing money since it launched. Every single season, tens of millions disappear. The NBA has been covering those losses this whole time. So when players demand a fixed percentage of revenue, ownership is looking at that request like it's completely disconnected from reality. Revenue sharing assumes the business is actually profitable. It assumes there's money left over after expenses to divide up. The WNBA doesn't have that. What it has is accumulated debt that needs addressing before anyone starts splitting up profits that don't exist. The expert broke it down clearly. Ownership wants expense control. They need to know exactly what they're committing to on salaries so they can actually plan toward eventual profitability. You can't do that with percentage-based compensation when revenue fluctuates and barely covers operations anyway. Players are basically demanding a share of a pie that hasn't been baked yet and threatening to burn down the kitchen if they don't get it, so now ownership is getting creative. They're proposing things like eliminating certain benefits, such as housing, but pushing maximum salaries even higher. They're moving money around, trying to make the headline numbers more attractive while reducing total expenses. That's actually smart business. Focus resources on elite talent who drive attention, trim costs elsewhere, and hope it's enough to close a deal. What's interesting, though, is that kind of strategy usually comes from the union side, not management. The fact that owners are suggesting it shows how desperate things have gotten to avoid total collapse. The negotiation expert walked through how this process normally functions. You assign a value to everything. Housing costs this much per team. Benefits run that much. Raising minimum salaries costs this amount league-wide. Then you trade pieces back and forth until both sides feel like they won something valuable. But the fundamental principle is that ownership always wants to come out ahead. They want more value than they give up. That's just business. That's negotiation. Right now, though, WNBA players are demanding concessions that would push owners so deep into the red, there'd be no path back. Here's the scary part. The expert stated flat out that if players don't budge on demanding a revenue percentage, the end result could be the end of the WNBA. He wasn't hedging or softening it. He said the league could fold. When the host pushed back, asking how realistic that possibility actually is, he doubled down. He said this is exactly the moment when some well-funded competitor could launch a new league. Think about what that means. Every WNBA player is technically a free agent during these negotiations. They all need income. They all want more income. If someone like Project B or any other group with capital decided right now to start a competing league with better compensation, they could take every talented player from the WNBA overnight. The league would be finished. Adam Silver understands this. The players understand this, but they seem willing to risk it anyway. Players made a huge strategic error, and the expert called it out directly. They declared this is their moment. They've put enormous pressure on themselves to extract major concessions in this CBA because of the visibility Caitlin Clark brought. But that's terrible negotiating. You're supposed to make incremental progress across multiple agreements. You build slowly. You don't swing for the fences all at once because then you corner yourself where anything less than complete victory feels like defeat. That's exactly the position players are in right now. They've worked themselves up so much that they can't accept a deal that doubles